The complete truth about cat nutrition, what your cat's body was built for, and what most owners get wrong every single day. Right now, somewhere in your home, your cat is waiting to be fed, and you're going to give her something, a scoop of this, a can of that, maybe what you've always given her, maybe what was on sale, maybe what the bag says is complete and balanced. And here's what most owners never realize. The food in that bowl, every single day, is either quietly building her up or quietly wearing her down. And the difference between those two outcomes isn't expensive, it isn't complicated. But it does require knowing one thing that most cat owners were never told. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what your cat's body was built to run on, why the most popular cat food in America works against that biology, and what 3 changes, none of them dramatic, could add years to the life of the animal sleeping on your couch right now. The last one is the one most owners never see coming, and it's the one that changes everything. Act 1. What your cat actually is. The body that started this whole story. To understand what your cat should eat, you first have to understand what your cat is. Not what she looks like on your couch. Not the animal who follows you to the kitchen every morning and pretends she hasn't eaten in weeks. What she is, biologically, in her bones and blood and the ancient machinery of her digestive system. Your cat is what scientists call an obligate carnivore. That's a fancy phrase. Here's what it means in plain language. Your cat cannot survive on plants. Not thrive, survive. Her body literally cannot extract what it needs from anything other than animal tissue. Humans can eat a salad and get real nutrition from it. Dogs can too. Even bears, which most people think of as meat eaters, happily run on berries and fish and whatever they find. Your cat cannot. A cat eating only vegetables would go blind. Her heart would fail. She would die. That's not dramatic. That's just what her biology requires. And here's where it gets interesting. Scientists have looked at what wild cats, the closest relatives of your house cat, actually eat in the wild. Free-roaming feral cats who hunt for themselves. No bowls, no bags, just whatever they can catch. The results are striking. Their natural diet is roughly 50% protein, 45% fat, and about 2% carbohydrates. 2%. Think about that for a moment. The animal you share your home with evolved on a diet that was almost entirely meat and fat, with barely a trace of anything that came from a plant. Now think about what's in most bags of dry cat food sitting on American shelves right now. We'll get there. But first, there's one more thing about your cat's body that changes the entire conversation about what she should drink. And most owners have no idea this is even happening. The desert animal in your living room. Your cat does not drink enough water. You've probably noticed this. She walks past her bowl. She barely looks at it. You refill it, she ignores it. You buy a fountain, she uses it occasionally, mostly to knock things off nearby surfaces. Here's what most owners don't realize. She's not being difficult. She's following ancient biology that was never designed for the world she lives in now. Your cat's ancestors lived in deserts, not occasionally, for tens of thousands of years. And in a desert, there are no rivers to drink from, no puddles after rain, no water bowls conveniently placed near the food. What desert hunters had was prey, small animals, birds, mice, and prey is made of, you guessed it, mostly water. A mouse is about 70% water, a small bird similar. The desert cat didn't need to find a stream. Every meal came with its own water supply built in. So her body never developed a strong thirst signal. She doesn't get thirsty the way you do. She doesn't feel a pull toward water the way a dog does. Her nervous system just never needed that alarm because for thousands of years, her food took care of it. Now fast forward to today. The average bag of dry cat kibble contains about 10% water. A mouse contains 70%. Your cat's body is running on a desert survival system that assumes her food will hydrate her. And then you give her food with 7 times less water than everything she evolved to eat. She's not going to drink her way out of this gap. Her thirst drive isn't built for it. So most cats on dry food are running in a state of low-grade dehydration every single day and showing almost no outward signs that anything is wrong. Until something goes wrong. But we'll get to that in Act 2, because first, there's one nutrient that your cat absolutely cannot live without, and that most cat food either has too little of or gets wrong in a way that's genuinely dangerous. The one nutrient your cat cannot fake. There's an amino acid called taurine. You've probably seen it on energy drink labels. For your cat, it is not an optional bonus. It is the difference between a healthy heart and a failing one, between clear vision and progressive blindness, between a cat who thrives for 18 years and one who quietly deteriorates before anyone notices why. Here's the thing about taurine. Almost every living creature can make their own. Dogs can, humans can. We produce it internally, so even if we don't eat much of it, our bodies top themselves up. Cats cannot. They lost that ability somewhere in evolution, probably because their prey-based diet always supplied plenty of it, so they never needed to manufacture it themselves. Taurine is found in muscle meat, in organ tissue, in the heart and brain and eyes of the animals a cat would catch. When your cat eats real animal protein, she gets taurine. When she eats food built around plant proteins, she doesn't. And the consequences of getting this wrong are not small. Studies show that taurine deficiency affects around 25% of cats on inadequately formulated diets. The damage it causes is slow and quiet. It doesn't happen overnight. But over months and years, a cat without enough taurine develops something called dilated cardiomyopathy. Her heart muscle weakens and enlarges, slowly losing its ability to pump properly. She also develops what's called feline central retinal degeneration. The cells at the back of her eyes begin to die, stealing her vision in a process that is irreversible once it starts. By the time most owners see the signs, the labored breathing, the squinting, the sudden weight loss, the damage is already significant. This is not a rare edge case. It is a documented, well-understood consequence of feeding cats food that doesn't reflect what their bodies actually need. And most owners never realize it's happening until it's too late. So that's what your cat is, a desert predator, a body built for meat and moisture, a creature with a non-negotiable need for nutrients that only come from animal tissue. Now let's talk about what most cats in America are actually eating every day. And I want to warn you now, this part is going to feel uncomfortable, not because someone made a terrible decision, but because the gap between what cats need and what most cats get is bigger than almost anyone realizes. Act 2. What's actually in the bowl. The gap between what she needs and what she gets. Let's talk about dry cat food, not to demonize it, not to say everyone who feeds it is doing something wrong, but to look honestly at what it is, how it's made, and what it means for the animal eating it every day. Dry kibble is convenient. It doesn't spoil in the bowl. You can measure it easily, leave it out, use it in puzzle feeders. There are real practical advantages, and we'll come back to those. But here's what most owners never realize about how kibble is made. To turn meat and ingredients into a dry, shelf-stable pellet, the whole mixture goes through a process called extrusion. The ingredients are combined, cooked at extremely high heat and pressure, and pushed through a machine that shapes them into the little pieces you pour into the bowl. That process does something important to the food. Heat destroys nutrients. Some of the proteins change structure. Some of the fats oxidize. And the taurine we just talked about, which is heat sensitive, takes a significant hit during processing. This is why quality kibble manufacturers add taurine back in afterward. They have to, because the process strips it out. But the deeper issue isn't the processing. It's the ingredients needed to make that process work. Extrusion requires starch to bind everything together. You can't make a dry pellet without it. So virtually every dry cat food, regardless of what it says on the front of the bag, contains a meaningful percentage of carbohydrates, grains, potatoes, peas, corn, something starchy to hold it all together. Many dry cat foods contain 30 to 40% carbohydrates by content. Remember what your cat's natural diet contains? 2%. We're feeding animals built for 2% carbs a diet that's 30 to 40% carbs every single day for their entire lives. And most owners have no idea this is happening because the bag says things like high protein and real chicken, and nothing on the front mentions the starch at all. What carbs do to a cat's body. Here's where it gets important to understand, and I'm going to explain this in the simplest possible way because the science here is genuinely fascinating. When you eat a piece of bread, your body knows exactly what to do. You have an enzyme in your saliva that starts breaking down the starch before it even reaches your stomach. Your pancreas releases insulin to manage the blood sugar spike. Your body is built for this. It handles carbohydrates efficiently because humans have been eating them for a very long time. Your cat has none of that machinery. She has no salivary amylase, the enzyme that starts carbohydrate digestion in your mouth. Her pancreas produces far less of the enzymes needed to break down starch than almost any other domestic animal. Her intestine is short, designed for rapidly digesting protein, not slowly fermenting plant fiber. When your cat eats a high-carb meal, her blood sugar spikes and stays elevated for longer than it should because her body can't process glucose quickly. Her pancreas works hard to produce enough insulin to handle it. Do this day after day, year after year, and you're asking a system that was never designed for this workload to handle it indefinitely. Now, here's where I need to be careful, because the science on this is more nuanced than many popular cat nutrition videos suggest. The direct link between carbohydrates and diabetes in cats is real, but not simple. A major research review published in 2025, analyzing 16 separate studies, found that carbohydrates alone don't automatically cause obesity or insulin resistance in every cat. What the science does clearly show is this. Cats with diabetes have significantly better chances of going into remission when switched to a low-carbohydrate diet. And cats who are already genetically predisposed to metabolic issues, which is most overweight, indoor, neutered cats, are more vulnerable to the effects of a high-carb diet than others. In other words, it's not that every cat eating kibble will develop diabetes. It's that the combination of excess carbohydrates plus low activity, plus indoor lifestyle, creates conditions that a cat's body was never built to manage. And the numbers are hard to argue with. According to the Association for Pet Obesity Prevention's 2022 survey, 61% of cats in the United States are classified as overweight or obese. 61%. That's almost 2 out of every 3 cats. And here's the part that stops most people cold. According to the same survey, nearly 1/3 of owners of overweight cats classified their cat as normal weight. They couldn't see the problem because it happened so gradually, so quietly, that it just became the new normal. Obesity in cats is not a cosmetic issue. It increases the risk of diabetes. It compresses joints and causes a 5-fold increase in lameness. It shortens life. Cornell University's College of Veterinary Medicine states plainly that obesity is the most common preventable disease in cats in North America. Most preventable. That means most of it didn't have to happen. The silent crisis in the kidneys. This is the escalation announcement I promised at the start, because what's happening in your cat's kidneys right now, every day she spends dehydrated, is the most serious and the least visible consequence of how most cats are fed. Think of your cat's kidneys like a water filter. Every day, they clean her blood. They filter out waste products, regulate minerals, maintain the balance that keeps every other organ functioning. A filter works best with plenty of water running through it. When there's not enough water, when the filter is running dry, it has to work harder to do the same job. Waste products become more concentrated. Minerals start to crystallize. The filter itself begins to wear faster. Now run that filter dry every day for years. A 2024 study published in PLOS ONE tested exactly this. Cats fed wet food had dramatically higher urine volume and significantly more dilute urine than cats fed dry food, regardless of the protein content. More volume, lower concentration, less crystallization, less stress on the kidneys. Cats fed primarily dry food produced more concentrated urine. The exact conditions under which urinary crystals form, blockages develop, and kidney tissue slowly degrades. Feline lower urinary tract disease affects up to 10% of cats annually, making it one of the most common reasons cats end up in emergency veterinary care. And male cats are especially vulnerable because their narrower urethra means even a small crystal can cause a complete blockage that becomes life-threatening within hours. But the longer-term number is even harder to look at. Research published in 2025 found that between 20 and 50% of cats over the age of 10 have chronic kidney disease. One study from a major veterinary alliance estimates that roughly 1 in 3 cats will develop CKD in their lifetime. In cats over 15, the prevalence may reach 80%. Read that again. Up to 80% of very old cats have chronic kidney disease. Kidney disease is the leading cause of death in senior cats. It is progressive and irreversible. There is no cure, only management. And while genetics plays a role, hydration is one of the most significant controllable factors in whether a cat develops it and how quickly it progresses. Your cat's kidneys are working right now. They're working every hour of every day on whatever water she got from her food and whatever she managed to drink from the bowl she mostly ignores. Most owners don't find out there's a problem until the kidneys have already lost more than 75% of their function. Because cats hide illness. They don't show pain, don't slow down visibly, don't cry. By the time the symptoms appear, the damage is done. The food you choose now is not about the next meal. It's about whether her kidneys are still working properly in 5 years. If this is landing differently than you expected, if you're looking at your cat's bowl right now with new eyes, this channel exists for exactly this. We don't do surface-level pet advice here. We go deep because your cat deserves an owner who knows what they're doing. Subscribe before we get to Act 3. Because what comes next is where everything changes, and it's simpler than you think. Act 3. What you can actually do. The good news you've been waiting for. Here's what I want you to know before we go any further. Everything in Act 2 was not meant to make you feel guilty. If your cat has been eating dry food her whole life, you weren't being negligent. You were doing what the packaging told you was fine. what the store promoted, what most people around you probably did too. The information just wasn't getting through. But you're here now, and that matters. Because almost everything we talked about, the dehydration, the carbohydrate overload, the kidney stress, is addressable. Not with expensive prescriptions or complicated routines. With food choices, 3 of them in order of impact. Change 1. Moisture is the highest leverage move you can make. If you make only one change after watching this video, make it this one: add wet food. Not necessarily instead of everything else. Not an overnight revolution in your cat's bowl, just add wet food. Daily. Consistently. Here's why this matters more than almost any other dietary decision. Wet food contains 70 to 80% water. Remember what your cat's natural prey contains? Roughly the same. When you feed wet food, you're not just giving her a meal, you're restoring the hydration her biology assumes will come with every meal. What happens in the body is direct and measurable. Studies show that cats eating wet food produce significantly more urine at significantly lower concentration. The kidneys filter more efficiently. The conditions for crystal formation are dramatically reduced. The chronic low-level dehydration that plagues most dry-fed cats simply stops. This is not a small thing. This is the single most impactful change you can make for your cat's long-term kidney health, urinary health, and overall well-being, and it requires nothing more than opening a can. Now, a few practical things most owners never hear. First, cold wet food straight from the fridge is not ideal. Your cat's instincts are drawn to food that feels like fresh prey, roughly body temperature. Cold food has less smell, less appeal, and can cause mild digestive discomfort. A few seconds in the microwave or a splash of warm water mixed in brings it to the right range. 30 seconds of effort. Significant difference. Second, wet food cannot sit out the way kibble can. Once it's at room temperature, bacteria multiply quickly. 2 hours is the safe maximum. Whatever isn't eaten after 2 hours should be thrown away. Opened cans should be covered and refrigerated immediately and used within 48 hours. Third, if your cat has only ever eaten dry food, switching isn't always instant. Some cats need a transition period, a gradual increase in wet food over 1 to 2 weeks while the dry food portion decreases. Go at her pace. Cats are creatures of habit, and their digestive systems appreciate a gentle transition. Change 2. Read past the front of the bag. Most owners never look at the ingredient list on their cat's food, and the people who designed the packaging are counting on that. Here's the most important thing to understand about cat food labels. Ingredients are listed by weight. That means the first ingredient is what the food contains the most of. When a bag says real chicken on the front in large letters, it means chicken is the first ingredient. It does not mean chicken is most of what the cat is eating once everything is processed and dried. Moisture makes meat heavy. A chicken thigh is about 70% water. Dry it out, and it shrinks dramatically. So, chicken listed first might contribute far less to the final dry product than a plant protein or starch listed third or fourth. What you're looking for specifically, an animal protein, chicken, turkey, salmon, beef, as the first ingredient. Not chicken meal as the only protein, though meal isn't necessarily bad, but ideally a named meat source at the top. No plant proteins like pea protein, soy protein, or potato protein in the top 5 ingredients. Remember taurine. It comes from animal tissue. Plant proteins don't carry it. Foods built around plant proteins may be technically complete by adding taurine back in, but you're relying entirely on the manufacturer's supplementation rather than what the food naturally contains. No corn syrup, artificial colors, or preservatives you can't pronounce. These add nothing your cat needs and potentially stress systems already working hard. And if the food lists multiple starch sources, corn, wheat, rice, potato, peas, in the first several ingredients, that food is built around carbohydrates. It may still be AFCO approved. It may still be safe. But it is not reflecting what your cat's body was built to thrive on. A quick note on grain-free foods, because this has become confusing. Grain-free does not mean low carbohydrate. Many grain-free kibbles simply replace corn and wheat with peas, lentils, and potatoes, which are still carbohydrates, and in some cases may present their own nutritional concerns. If you're choosing grain-free for carbohydrate reasons, check the full ingredient list. The grain-free label alone tells you almost nothing about whether the food is appropriate for a carnivore. Change 3. Feed her like a hunter, not like a vending machine. This one sounds subtle. It has a bigger impact than most owners expect. In the wild, a cat eats up to 10 small meals a day. Not because she's greedy, because that's the size of what she catches. A mouse, a small bird, a lizard. Each meal is small, protein-dense, complete, and then done. She hunts, she eats, she rests. Most owners feed once or twice a day with a full portion sitting in the bowl. Some leave food available all day. Neither of these approaches reflects how a cat's digestive system was designed to work. Here's what most owners never realize about meal frequency and urinary health. When cats eat multiple small meals throughout the day, their urine pH stays in a healthier, more balanced range, not too alkaline, not too acidic. Both extremes create conditions for different types of crystals. Frequent small meals naturally buffer that pH without any medication or special food. You don't need to feed 10 times a day. But splitting the daily portion into 3 or 4 smaller meals, spread through the day, is significantly better for urinary health than 1 or 2 large portions. Puzzle feeders, slow feeder bowls, and timed automatic feeders can all help achieve this without you hovering over the bowl. And there's another benefit that has nothing to do with digestion. Cats are hunters. Their brains are wired for the hunt, catch, eat, groom, sleep cycle. When food appears in a bowl with no effort required, that cycle is broken. The cat never hunts. The cat never works for the meal. Over time, this contributes to the boredom, overeating, and anxiety that show up as weight gain, overgrooming, and behavioral problems in indoor cats. Feeding in a way that requires some effort, a puzzle feeder, a food dispensing toy, multiple small meals in different locations, restores something her brain was built to need. It's not about making her life difficult. It's about giving her something her nervous system is wired to find deeply satisfying. A cat who works for her food eats slower, feels fuller on less, and is measurably calmer in the hours after eating. That is not coincidence. That is biology being honored. Decoder, your screenshot summary. What your cat actually is: an obligate carnivore, built for prey, 50% protein, 45% fat, 2% carbs, a desert animal with a low thirst drive who depends on her food for hydration, a creature who cannot synthesize taurine and must get it from animal tissue. What the numbers actually say: 61% of U.S. cats are overweight or obese. Up to 50% of cats over 10 have chronic kidney disease. FLUTD affects up to 10% of cats annually. Taurine deficiency affects around 25% of cats on inadequately formulated diets. Almost none of these conditions announce themselves early. The 3 changes in order of impact. 1. Add wet food daily, 70 to 80% moisture. Serve warm, not cold from the fridge. Never leave out more than 2 hours. This is the single highest leverage change you can make. 2. Read the ingredient list, not the front of the bag. First ingredient should be a named animal protein. Watch for plant proteins in the top 5. Grain-free does not mean low carb. 3. Feed smaller, more frequent meals. Split the daily portion. Use puzzle feeders. Give her brain the hunt it was wired for. Her kidneys, her weight, and her mental health all benefit. The one-sentence version. Feed her like the hunter she is, not like the pet we turned her into. Your cat can't read the ingredient list. She can't tell you when something is wrong. She can't explain that she's been running slightly dehydrated for 3 years, or that her kidneys are working harder than they should, or that the hunger that wakes you up at 4 a.m. is her body signaling that last night's bowl didn't satisfy what she actually needed. She trusts you to figure it out. Now you have. One change today, the rest over time. And years from now, a cat who's still beside you, healthy, warm, and entirely convinced that all of this was her idea. If you want to go deeper, the next video covers the one daily habit that's silently damaging your cat's trust in you. It has nothing to do with food. And most owners do it every single day without knowing. It's already there. And if you care about her the way I think you do, you'll want to watch it now.